Hello again, John Wild here to give you another look at vintage action figures. And this time what we're going to be doing is repairing vintage 1979 Remco monsters. The Remco monsters are a beloved line of 10-inch action figures produced in 1979. The assortment included Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy, the Wolfman, and in 1980 added the Phantom of the Opera and the Creature from the Black Lagoon. These toys have a glow-in-the-dark feature and monster-crushing action. Similar to Mego's 8-inch figures, Remco monsters stand at 10 inches high and have articulation at the ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, and neck. And like Mego figures, these toys were cheaply produced and are prone to breakage. But this video will give you some of my tips and tricks for repairing Remco monsters. First, we really need to look at the unique and common parts of Remco monsters. All of these figures use the same basic body structure. The arms have these very unique slices in them that accommodate for the monster crushing action. The heads of all the Remco monsters are unique to the character. The torso piece is the most common, but the creature and the Wolfman's torso are cast in different color plastics. The waist pieces are the same on every figure, with the exception of the creature, which is cast in a green plastic. The manufacturer and licensing is on the waist of the figure on the back side. The legs are also the same on Remco monsters, with the exception of the creature whose legs are cast in a green plastic. There are 3 different styles of feet on Remco monsters. The one on the left is the common foot, the one on the right is the Wolfman foot, and here is a look at the creature's feet. There are also 3 different styles of hands. You have a smooth hand, you have a Wolfman hand, and here's a look at the creature's hands. So, if you know your parts, you can swap out to complete broken or incomplete figures. That's important. You must have spares to repair. If you have the parts, I'll show you the tips and the tricks. Now that we know our parts, let's get to repairing these monsters. Using a hairdryer, you can soften the head plastic up, give it a little twist, and the head will easily be removed. Once you remove the head, there are 3 screws on the back of the figure. Loosen these screws and that will crack apart the torso. Once the screws are removed, chest cavity is going to break apart, revealing the monster crushing action. Now we've got a good look at the inside of the Remco monster figure. We see there's a spring here and that returns the button after you press it when you use the monster crushing action. The arms slot into the back of the torso, so you're going to need to lift those gently out, and that is going to bring the button right out of the back of the figure. So now we'll see how this monster crushing action actually works. The arms are attached by a thin piece of plastic that runs down to the hand. They're attached at the hand and they're attached up here at the button. And then when this button is depressed, shortens this piece of plastic, which causes these hands to curl in. Now, if this feature is broken on your figure, let's say that one is cut or it's broken or the arms are sliced or something like that, really the only way to repair this is to actually get a new set of arms like this. Now, unfortunately though, there are unique hands. The Wolfman and the Creature from the Black Lagoon have different hands. So these are the smooth common hands that are found on Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy, and the Phantom of the Opera. So at least 4 out of the 6 you can repair using just any common hand. The bad news is if you have a Wolfman or a creature to repair, you're going to have to find those unique parts. So let's show how to reassemble this torso. So we're going to take the back chest piece and we're going to put the button into the slot. The arms are then going to seat into the shoulders. We're going to add the spring into the center of the button. Now, getting the waist piece, I'm going to slot that into the bottom. Now, taking the front piece of the torso, we see there's a little tab there. That tab is going to seat into the spring. So we're going to want to line that up and drop it into there. Once we do that, close up the torso like so. Make sure that the waist twist, make sure that the arms articulate, everything's sealed together tight. Turning the figure back around again, we reinsert the screws. Okay, so once the screws are installed, the monster crushing action on this figure should work. So let's give it a try here. To reinstall the monster's head, simply heat up with a hairdryer and then push down back onto the peg until it fits back on again. Now let's get a look at a common problem, which is legs that are floppy at the hips. The legs are attached through the hips using a few rubber bands and 2 pegs. To remove the legs from the pelvis, simply pull out, hold onto the rubber band. You're going to push that peg out and then catch it with your finger. Once you have a good hold on it, pull it out, hold the rubber band, release the peg, like so, and then let it go and it all should fall apart, nice and easy. Or you could always just cut that rubber band too, your choice. So if you have replacement rubber bands, the reinstall is relatively easy. I just use a little piece of elastic cord here, and I'm going to thread it through the rubber bands. Make it loop like that. And I'm going to take the free ends here, I'm going to run them through the torso. Pull that tight. Then I'm going to take the leg that I have here, and I'm going to run that through the leg hole, like so. Now, using this elastic cord, I can pull it, and I pull the rubber band through. I'm going to hold that with my finger. I'm going to get my peg that I have right here, and I'm going to hook the peg around these 2 rubber bands. You hook it around both of the rubber bands. There we go. See, we get it hooked around both rubber bands. Now holding that, just pull out this elastic cord, and then it should snap back together again. So if your rubber bands are weak or broken, you could always use just some elastic cord like this. What I usually do is just make a loop that's similar in the size to it. I'll double it up, so I'll just take it and wrap it around my finger like twice. That makes a loop about what you need, and then just tie a knot in the end. Tie that good and tight. Then we just nip these ends off. So now we've got that. So we'll just double that loop up by just folding it in half. So now we've got a double loop, and that will be your new rubber band for the inside of the legs. So I have my peg around the loop here. Now I'm just going to take my piece of elastic cord. I'm going to run it through that loop. Now, getting a leg, I'm going to thread that through the hip part, right like that. Once I've done that, I can pull this all through here, and this peg is now going to seat into the top of the leg socket, just like so. Now, with this free end, just like we did with the rubber band repair, we're going to run that through the hips, grab onto it, pull it tight. So now that you've got that, you're going to run your other hip piece. You're going to thread it through, like so. Pull that tight. Now, same as the rubber band, you just pull that tight, hold the loop, get your pin. Now that you got your pin hooked on this side, you can remove this elastic piece, straighten your pin out, and then it's going to clip back in again, and you have your legs reattached. And if you made your loop tight enough, it should hold itself very tightly at the hips. Be aware that the hip pegs are pretty fragile. They're made of that glow-in-the-dark plastic that just seems to get brittle, so they break easily. So don't put too much strain on them by installing too small of a rubber band. If the hip pegs break, only a replacement can be used, so having some spare body parts really does help. Let's take a look at knee pins now, and the Remco Monsters use a similar knee pin system to Mego. That also means that these have a tendency to break and get brittle because they're made of this glow-in-the-dark style plastic. What'll happen is if the figure ends up working side to side, that pin will break, and once it breaks, it won't hold tight anymore into the other side of the peg that looks like that. Basically, that's a rivet. And if you lose that end, that rivet won't hold it back together again. Now, there's two different ways to fix this. You could always just swap the whole leg out with a leg that has knee pins that aren't broken, or you could also use this method. It's temporary, but it does work. Okay, so to repair this knee pin without using a knee pin, you can always use a 6/32 bolt and a 6/32 nut. So what I do is I take the nut and put it through the leg, add it onto the bottom section of the leg, so they're mated up like that. I'm going to hold that. I'm going to put the nut, just rest it up onto the top. You don't have to get fancy with it right now. The tightening is really how that works out. So you kind of flip it over. Now get your screwdriver, and I spin until I start to get thread on that nut. So once you've got some thread on the nut, you can easily just kind of tighten that up. You want to go tight, but you don't want to go too tight. You want that to be stiff. So with this repair complete, we can see that the leg is holding together and it does move. Sooner or later that nut might get a little bit loose, but as most likely you're going to be just using this to display a Remco monster. It's a good cheap fix, and it will allow your figure to stand on both of his legs again. The last bit of repair we're going to do today is called foot swapping, and I'm going to show you how this is done. All Remco monsters' feet are attached to the leg with a peg. To remove the leg, all you're going to need is a precision screwdriver. So we're going to place the screwdriver on that little peg, and we're going to push all the way through, and it'll pop out onto the other side. You'll be able to remove the foot. There's the peg, and then you can swap out for a new foot. To put the foot back together again, we're going to put the leg back into the socket like so, and then we're going to take the little plastic peg. This is tough to see. I'm going to put it in the side of the ankle like so, and we're just going to push it all the way through and peg it right back into the foot again. Okay, so now that we've shown how to repair the bodies of these figures, now let's take a look at their clothing, what's unique and what's common. So we'll start with the easiest one to complete, and that's the mummy. He just has a jumpsuit, that's all it is. It has printed bandages on it, and it buttons up at the top. But he only has one piece clothing, and he doesn't have any shoes. The next one we'll look at here is the Frankenstein monster. So he's got a unique jacket. He has a green shirt on underneath. He has pants and he has boots. Now these are the monster boots, and the monster boots are common for Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Phantom of the Opera. They all have the same boots. Let's get a closer look at these boots. Here's a closer look at the monster boots that come with the Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Phantom of the Opera. Unfortunately, they're cast in two separate pieces of plastic, and then they were kind of heat sealed together. And this unfortunately causes a seam line from front to back. These, when they fit onto the figure's feet, especially after repeated taking offs, they have a tendency to crack in half like that. So keep an eye on that for your figures. You may end up having to replace these boots out at some time, but remember that these boots are common for 3 different figures. Now let's get a look at the Wolfman. We see he's wearing a brown shirt with a white belt. This white belt is a piece of white string. The Wolfman is also dressed in brown slacks. The next figure we're going to look at is Dracula. Dracula is wearing a jumpsuit underneath the jacket and a cape. The jumpsuit is unique just to Dracula. The jacket is also unique to Dracula because it doesn't have a collar around the neck, just on the chest. The cape to Dracula is also unique. It's red lined, unlike the Phantom cape, which is just black lined. Like the Phantom, Frankenstein monster, Dracula is wearing monster boots.
Here's a look at the creature from the Black Lagoon. The creature from the Black Lagoon, like the mummy, just has a jumpsuit. Here's a look at our last and hardest to find monster, the Phantom. The Phantom has a unique jumpsuit and a unique black cape. He also wears the same common monster boot.
As far as I know, no one has reproduction clothing for Remco monsters available. So I suggest even broken Remco monsters can be useful for repair of your figures or future repairs as these figures age. Any chance to get Remco monster clothing should be taken advantage of. So if your Remco monster is broken, have no fear. Like Dr. Frankenstein, you can give your Remco monster new life. I would like to thank you for watching my video. Please like, share, and subscribe to catch my latest uploads. And until next time, we can rebuild him